Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I'm here to give you a wrap-up of the books that I read from the Mock Newbery List found on Goodreads for 2024, and I will also be showing you a haul of the books that I got from the Mock Newbery List of 2025. This is a list from Goodreads that gives you an idea of the potential nominees as to who could win the Newbery Medal or Newbery Honors for any particular year. For 2024, these are books that were published in 2023, whereas the Mock Newbery List of 2025, those books were published in 2024. There are 7 on each. I'm going to start by talking about the books that I read from the Mock Newbery List of 2024, and then I will move on to what I bought from the Mock Newbery List of 2025. The very first book that I read from the Mock Newbery List of 2024 is What Happened to Rachel Riley. And this has to do with Anna Hunt and her family moving from Chicago to Madison, Wisconsin. And at Anna Hunt's new school, she meets a girl named Rachel Riley. Rachel Riley, it turns out, was the year before one of the most popular kids in school. But this year she has become an outcast. Being investigative and being inspired by a podcast plus a project that she was assigned to do, Anna decides to investigate the situation and figure out why it is that Rachel Riley has become the outcast that she is. I love how fleshed out this book was. The innovative ways in which it told the story, and I really genuinely cared for the characters in this piece. And those that were more antagonizing, I either felt a sense of understanding as to why they were the way they were, how it is that they were fleshed out, and also how aggravating they could be in their circumstance and given the background in which they were participating. To me, Rachel Riley was somebody that I could really garner sympathy for because of how introverted, quiet, but at the same time short and standoffish. She was very authentic, and I really felt a sense of it felt very painful to see what she was going through and why she did so in the matter of staying true to what she felt and believed in rather than going with the crowd in a particular circumstance. I think this book should be viewed as the standard for the story that it sets out to tell. Next, I read Artemis, Sparke, and the Soundseekers Brigade by Kimberly, Behre, Kenna. And this is driven by a story that's written about the title character who has an unseen condition, and in this case it's a stutter. But more so, Artemis, who is known as Art, lives with her mother at a historic hotel in Horizons, Connecticut. And it's owned by her mother's boyfriend and boss, Mr. Harry Hollander. And he's more concerned about the progress of the hotel and making money, rather than the environmental concerns that are going on around it. In particular, there are environmental issues taking place within the Long Island Sound. And Artemis wants to warn everybody before it's too late to resolve any problem, because once the environmental concerns take place, not only is it going to be a detriment, but it's also going to cause problems for the historic hotel anyway. I really admired the development and the passion that Artemis had for what it was she believed in, but I thought that the changes within this piece were very rapid. We didn't really get a good sense of her mother's relationship with Mr. Hollander, and I felt that there was a weird uniformity when it came to Artemis's stutter, because I feel that when it comes to stuttering, there's a bit more of an inconsistency to it. It didn't really feel like it was clinically on key. I mean, that's just the way that I see it. Next, I read When Sea Becomes Sky by Gillian McDunn, and this pertains to Rebecca Bex Wheeler. It's told from her perspective, and it tells the story about the adventures that she has with her younger brother Davy, and they take their rowboat True Blue out to what they refer to as the thumb of Pelican Island. And they bring their cat Squish with them. This summer, though, they're dealing with quite a few things. There's a drought that's causing the water level to lower, and it reveals, slowly but surely, a statue. And Bex is trying to figure out where the statue came from. And at the same time, they're also beginning to do construction so that they can build a bridge that connects the mainland to this island so that they can make it into a tourist attraction. This book, this is a prime example of amazing storytelling. I was enriched and engaged in a way that I will not forget. She takes the creation of something and turns it on its head in an unforgettable kind of way. I thought it would be going a certain direction, but it went a completely different direction, and the result was really strong. I think that it did cause it to develop some holes, especially when it comes to looking back. However, I think that with what she was setting out to do and how she accomplished that was a feat within itself. Next, I read A First Time for Everything by Dan Santat. This is a graphic novel, and I finished this in 3 hours. It was that good. And in this graphic novel, Dan Santat tells the story of his summer field trip that he took after 8th grade and before 9th grade, thus after middle school and before the start of high school. He visits France, Switzerland, Austria, Germany, and the UK. He tries Fanta, fondue, beer, and he attends a semi-final match for Wimbledon. But the biggest moment of this trip was meeting his first girlfriend, Amy Gluckspringer, which you could see her on the back. You can see her on the front too, but clearer on the back. But this book captures the idea of what it is to come to age. And you could definitely see that Santat's Caldecott chops prevail within this piece, because I love the methods that he uses to make this book work. I love the honesty that he has with his observations and how he illustrates them. And he does admit that he altered things for effect. Ultimately, it worked for this piece, though. I highly encourage everybody to read this book, but especially someone that's looking to build their confidence. And I think that it is especially beneficial for the target audience for this book to read. Next, I read Simon Sort of Says by Erin Bow. This is actually the first book that I finished in 2024, and it has to do with Simon O'Keefe. His dad is a deacon for a Catholic church, and his mother is a funeral director that runs a funeral home. They moved out of Omaha and into a town called Grin Barrett, Nebraska, where it is in the National Quiet Zone. And while he's here, he meets a Gate, who is an autist who is into disgusting things and is recruiting people to help her send an alien message. And he also meets a friend named Kevin, who is from a family that's into science. He himself is very much into sports as well. But the one thing that Simon does not want people to know, and is a reason he came to Grin Barrett, Nebraska, is because he is the lone survivor in a school shooting. I thought that Bo was incredibly invested in this book, and thus, as a result, I felt very engaged, and I felt that the characters in general were very fleshed out. I do, however, think that there was a bit of... I think that Simon's voice was not as strong as far as his execution of storytelling is concerned. And he never tells the complete story of the shooting, which I'm not sure if that was intended, but I feel that he should have been more clear, because I felt that as the person telling his story, he should be able to confide in the reader and give them a sense as to what it was that took place. But whether or not it was a strategy, I do not know. The fact that he wouldn't tell the complete story to make his character more authentic. I think that a Gate is one of the strongest supporting characters that I have read, because not only does she bring Simon in to help her out with her mission, but she also provides him with a service dog named Hercules that really plays a huge role in helping him keep his PTSD in check. Next, I read Good Different by Meg Eden Kuyatt. And this book has to do with Selah Godfrey, who is on the autistic spectrum. She lives with her mom and down the street from her pop, which is her maternal grandfather. She loves dragons and math. She doesn't like loud noises or being touched. And things really begin to get rocky when she ends up getting suspended after she hits a student who, without her permission, braids her hair. She is suspended. Her fellow students begin to see her in a questionable light, and the school, in particular the principal, suggests that perhaps maybe she should find another school. This is written in verse, so it reads very much like an Ellen Hopkins book, and it reads very much like Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, only with a more sequential structure. I loved this book. I loved that it accurately and appropriately tells the story of somebody who is on the autistic spectrum. And I feel that people should be reading this book instead of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. And I thought that it made me feel warm inside in the way that it assured me that there is a world of people that are understanding, accepting, forgiving, and at the same time, this book does have a very fine balance of upstanders and downstanders. But the positive effect of the upstanders outweighs the negative effect of the downstanders. And this book also asserts that not all members of the spectrum are the same. And the final book that I read from the Mock Newbery List of 2024, and by that I mean from this batch. I might read books from that list in the future. But the book that I read last out of the 7 is Finally Seen by Kelly Yang. And this follows Lena Gale, who lived with her grandparents since she was 5, and while her grandfather has now passed, she's living just with her grandmother, but at the age of 10, she has the opportunity to move to the U.S. from China to live with her parents and younger sister, who went with her parents because she was much younger, or who had also moved with her parents when they moved. And she does take this granted opportunity to be with them. Things are challenging, and it does take adjusting between going to a new school and the fact that her family does have financial situations that they have to deal with. But yet she does get the support in being able to work toward where she wants to be. There is great dimension in this book among the characters, and they feel very believable. What I felt really stuck out with this book is that it champions graphic texts. I especially got a kick out of its references to New Kid, which I really enjoyed. That was a really good book. And I also like the fact that it champions the fact that everybody should have the freedom to read whatever it is that they wish and be encouraged to do so. I thought the concerns that I had to do with the subjectivity toward homeschooling, because I feel homeschooling can work for some people, not for others. I think that this book takes more of an approach where it's completely unfavorable, but I don't think it does enough to... It doesn't get to the point where it bogs the book down. And I also feel that there should have been a bit more clarification between when it was that Lena was speaking Chinese and when she was speaking English, because it seems more broken when she's with people that are unfamiliar, and that's probably the guide that we should take, but it's not necessarily clarified in here, and it makes it a bit inconsistent. I think that most importantly, I felt that this was immersive, and I felt engaged with the story and its characters. And now I'm going to rank them from 7 to 1, as far as which ones I liked the least best to the absolute best. And at number 7, I put Artemis, Sparke and the Soundseekers Brigade. In 6th place, out of these 7 books, is Simon Sort of Says. Number 5 is When Sea Becomes Sky. Number 4, Finally Seen. Number 3, A First Time for Everything. Number 2, What Happened to Rachel Riley. And number 1 on the list, Good Different. I think you're going to get some pretty good hints as to how I'm thinking as far as my final rankings for the best books that I read in 2024 are concerned. But keep in mind that the last 3 are books that I finished in 2024, thus will be eligible. The first 4 I ranked in 2023, and you could see 3 of them on my list for the 10 best books that I read throughout the year. Now I'm going to talk about the books from the 2025 Mock Newbery List on Goodreads that I purchased and will be reading probably during the fall. I'll get to them when I'm able, because I've got the reading for the 16th season of Literary Gladiators, and I would like to keep I'd like to keep up with the reading for the monthly Monmouth Millennials book club that I joined recently. And my other goal is to, and this may be subject to change, begin reading The Stand by Stephen King, because it is the oldest Stephen King book that I have yet to read, with the exception of certain Richard Bachman books. Otherwise, as far as the 2025 Mock Newbery List books are concerned, the first one that I acquired and will be reading is Light and Air by Mindy, Nichols, Wendell. This has to do with a mother and daughter who have tuberculosis. They are shunned by their society and sent to a hospital in upstate New York, where they receive incredible care and are surrounded by incredible people, but they still have the challenges regarding their health to deal with. And this takes place in 1935, when things were much tougher, and being able to survive with tuberculosis was much tougher. The writers such as Franz Kafka, Antoine Chekhov, Henry David Thoreau, all of them died from tuberculosis, and they were very young, too. Then I'm going to be reading The First State of Being by Erin Entrada Kelly. She is a Newbery Medal winner for her book Hello Universe. She also got an honor for We Dream of Space. And this has to do with a central character by the name of Michael, who deals with issues such as a school bully, a crush on a babysitter, making his mother proud, and preparation for Y2K. This book is set right in the transition between 1999 and 2000. He also sees the strange and mysterious kid from his window and questions who he is and what he wants, and then sees him with his favorite cat, which I'll be interested to read into a story like this. It seems like it can go any direction, but I'm still inclined to check this out. And on the topic of books that can go any direction, I picked up Ferris by Kate DiCamillo. I read The Tale of Despero. I thought it was mediocre. This one really seems like it can go any direction, because our central character, her name is Emma Finnis Wilkie, but everybody calls her Ferris, is going through a lot. For instance, she's trying to help her grandmother complete an assignment for a ghost. Her sister is looking to become an outlaw and is beginning to terrorize the town. Her uncle and aunt have divorced, so her uncle moved in, lives in their basement, and now wants Ferris to complete assignments regarding spying on her aunt. And a raccoon has gotten into the house as well, so it just seems like it's really... I'm wondering what kind of direction this book is going to take. Next, I got Max in the House of Spies, A Tale of World War II, which is a bit more of a fantasy. This is more fantastical as far as its approach to World War II is concerned. Our central character here, his name is Max. He's Jewish, but in order to keep him from enduring the dangers of Nazi Germany, he is sent to live in Britain, and he meets these two companions. One is Berg, who is a kobold, and the other one is Stein, who is a diebuck. But Max wants to go back to Germany to be with his family, and so he does so by becoming a British spy. And this is part of a duology. So I'm really curious to see how this book turns out, and I will probably end up picking up the second book if this one really impresses me. Then I picked up and will be reading The Night War by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. She is a two-time Newbery Honor winner. She won honors for The War That Saved My Life and Fighting Words. And this has to do with our central character, Miriam, who is Jewish. She's sent from a Jewish neighborhood in Paris to a French village where she stays at a boarding school and has to pretend to be Catholic so that she can escape the Nazis. But she decides to go on an adventure so that she could potentially save her parents. We don't know the status of her parents, but that's what makes this book all the more intriguing to read. And Kimberly Brubaker Bradley has experience writing on the subject of World War II. Next, I got Louder Than Hunger by John Shu, and this is written in free verse. This was one that I was wondering if it's something I would want to pick up, because it deals with our central character, Jake, who has anorexia, and thus he has difficulty. He does not want to eat because he's very self-conscious about his figure. To be honest, anorexia and bulimia, these are things that, for me, are very challenging to read about. But I want to challenge myself so that I can develop a greater understanding for people such as Jake. And it would be interesting to see what approach Shu takes as far as what it is that what Jake is going through. And then finally, I'm going to be reading Heroes by Alan Gratz. And I read another book called Heroes by Robert Cormier, but this is completely different. It has to do with Frank and Stanley, whose fathers are fighting on Pearl Harbor. The two of them are really enjoying their lives, but then December 7th, 1941 comes along and puts them in a physical scramble, and then the aftermath puts them in an even more intense scramble. Because Stanley's mother is Japanese American, and thus there is a great sense of prejudice toward people like Stanley's mother, and thus, because Stanley is part Japanese within his ancestry, he becomes shunned by his society, and it creates a great sense of strain and puts his friendship with Frank on the spot. But it does sound like Frank wants to do his best to be as supportive a friend as possible. So these are going to be the 7 books that I read for my next round of Mock Newbery reading. I'm really looking forward to getting to them. I will definitely review whatever it is that I read. And I want to thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you check out some more videos from our channel. If you like what you see, please subscribe for more. We have a lot more in store. And if you really like what you see, please support us on our Patreon, for the money that we make will allow us to provide you, the viewer, with even more great content. For now and as always, I encourage you to keep reading.